Hitting the high notes, an Intel Drop session specifically for lenders. Hitting the High Notes is hosted at Valuation Expo, the premier gathering of professionals working at the intersection of collateral valuation and collateral risk. This is the entire collateral risk ecosystem. AMCs, lenders, underwriters, tech providers, and regulators, all under one roof, all speaking the same language. Following the session, join us for a networking event where you'll have a chance to speak directly with our expert panel, ask the hard questions, compare notes with peers, and get clarity from the folks who are already navigating the UAD 3.6 terrain in real time. Today, we've got one of our experts on the podcast. Stick around.
LIA Administrators and Insurance Services, serving valuation professionals since 1978. We provide E&O insurance with a commitment to superior customer service, outstanding liability education, and unmatched claim defense. Explore our exclusive appraiser liability education by Peter Christensen and cost-effective seminars designed to foster your growth. Our underwriters, with an average of 26 years of experience each, are dedicated to supporting appraisers. Visit liability.com to discover how LIA can safeguard your business. You're listening to the Appraisal Buzzcast with your host, Hal Humphreys.
Welcome back, everyone, to today's Appraisal Buzzcast. Let me bring back in our host, Hal Humphreys. Hey, Hal, it's great to see you again.
Hi, Jim. How are you today?
Well, I am doing great because we are talking about our new session at Valuation Expo, Hitting the High Notes. You know, we're very excited for this. We're bringing some Nashville flavor to Valuation Expo. You know, our company's based in Nashville. You're in Nashville, so I'm excited that we get to do that. But it's not going to be all fun. We'll talk about the fun later. But let me bring in our leader for one of these sessions, Ronyelle Banks from ICE. Hey, Ronyelle.
Hi, everyone.
Ronyelle, I cannot thank you enough for taking the time to hop on the podcast with us and talk about hitting the high notes. But for, a lot of our listeners aren't going to know who you are. So if you don't mind, tell us how you kind of got into this realm of dealing with UAD 3.6 and, appraisals in specific, but the whole process. How did you end up where you are?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me today. And I fell into the mortgage industry back in college. So when I was going through college, I had a friend who owned a mortgage company. And as we know, mortgage and appraisals are intrinsically, linked together. So whereby I've been in the industry for about, 20 plus years, let's say. Currently today, I work for ICE Mortgage Technology, and in my role, I work very closely with the GSEs, Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, and other government entities. So I work closely to integrate their services, their workflows into Encompass and our products. And typically when the GSEs come out with mandates like Uniform Appraisal Dataset 3.6, I help to ensure that Encompass, our loan origination system, can support those changes and that our lenders and partners have what they need to process the new UAD. And of course, part of that comes, education and training.
Yeah, no doubt. And we are gearing up for what I've been calling a nutrient-rich session for lenders specifically on UAD 3.6. There's been a lot of discussion about the new version of UAD. Limited production starts at the start of September 8th, so everyone needs to be ready. Now, I know some lenders are saying, yeah, we're gonna hold back and see what happens, that kind of business. I'm going off script a little bit here, but from your perspective, should lenders be getting their head around this sooner as opposed to later?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So in my dealings with the lending community and with our implementation of UAD, I'm just going to hit some of the highlights that it's important for our lending community to know and start thinking about as they go to implement and digest this new data set. First and foremost, it's so important for lenders to be in contact with their appraisal integrators, AMCs, LOS providers, to understand, what changes are they making to be able to support the new UAD, because a lot of work is on the appraisal community to produce that new data structure. And it's important for the lender to understand what data elements in the loan file will now produce the correct appraisal you want to order, because as you know, or maybe you don't know, those form numbers are going away. And so that's a huge, huge change for the lending community. So I would say, getting involved, trying to understand, how that property data and that assignment information translate into the appraisal types is going to be very, very important. Aside from that, I think lenders need to understand what is the implementation timeline for those appraisals, the AMCs, the LOS providers, because that's going to impact your timeline for when you can assess your impact, and also your timelines for delivery and training your internal staff. If lenders are leveraging the GSE's Uniform Collateral Data Portal, UCDP, there's changes there. So if you have a third-party provider that you're integrated to, you want to make sure you reach out to them and understand when are those changes going to be in production and when can you start testing. Let's see what else. As far as internal processes, I know I can just go on and on. It'd be a good idea for lenders to review their appraisal fee setup process to make sure, nothing is changing. And, just understand and ensure that the data continues to flow over accurately to the loan estimate and the closing disclosure. There's a ULDD component to this change. So, the GSEs have their Uniform Loan Data Delivery File, which has been updated with specific data elements for UAD. So understanding how UAD translates into the ULDD data set, because some of those enumerations aren't exactly the same. So when you're going to sell your loan or deliver your loan to the GSEs or any other investor who requires this file, you need to make sure that you understand the process and that you're producing that file accurately.
I'm just letting you go because this is
Okay.
fascinating. You're doing such a good job.
Okay, good. I think lenders need to kind of just assess their overall workflow to determine, if you have any sort of business rules or logic or automation in place, will any of that need updating? Because it's going to take time to, decipher the new process and implement or integrate any new development. And then I know you had mentioned getting ready for that limited production period. Well, did you know, lending community, that in order to participate in this limited production, that you have to fill out a questionnaire? So the GSEs require you to fill out a questionnaire. It asks you some questions about your own internal processes, just to ensure that you're ready, but it also asks you questions about, what appraisal companies you're using. Are they ready? What LOS are you using? Are they ready? So it's not like you can just, go anytime you want to. There's a process. So just making sure that you understand the full process, so that you can participate in that. And then lastly, just at an organizational level, obviously you want to assess the impacts to your policies and procedures, and just make sure that you have enough time in place to train your staff, because there's definitely going to be lots of changes.
That's the thing that I think is really interesting about, and I've had conversations with, I'm going to say 5 lenders in the past 2 weeks around the country who have said some variation on the theme of, we're just going to wait. We're not worried right now. We'll do this when it's required. From what I'm hearing you say, if, and I think everybody does use some kind of a third party application to move this data through the process, if you're using a third party system that is not UAD 3.6 compliant, that's going to bring the entire production process, am I wrong, to a screeching halt?
Yes, that is true. And so even the lenders that I hear from who are going to wait, until closer to that final mandate, they're still getting familiar with the new processes. They're still reaching out to, their third-party providers to understand the changes and be prepared. So even if you do want to wait till closer to the mandate date, you still need to start thinking about today, what do I need to do internally? Big industry changes like UAD can be really unnerving to the lending community, especially for organizations that have, established workflows and the systems in place.
This is going to cause some larger enterprises to rethink the system, rethink how they do their workflow, because there's so many parts of this that are changing. And from an appraisal perspective, gone is the 1004, gone is the 1007. Those things will no longer exist. But from just a practical standpoint, we're doing away with addendums and those kind of things. All of the data is in what they call data packets. They're surrounding the area where they need to be. For instance, if we're talking about the subject, improvements, all of the data regarding the subject improvements is going to live in that same data packet under subject improvements. We're talking, exterior, interior, all that business is going to be in the same spot. So some of the data points from a lender perspective are going to be in different spots. They're used to opening up the 1004 and saying, oh, I'm going to go to this page and find this. Some of these things are going to move. Even little things like that can cause a need for training your staff.
Absolutely. And, when I think about kind of the roadblocks or obstacles that I'm seeing right now with, some of our lenders, the biggest challenge is exactly that. It's a shift in mindset to try to understand how to operate without these form numbers and understanding what are the new data fields that I need to be focused on to ensure that, I'm requesting that proper appraisal, and where does the data now live? Who's going to fill out that data? Is it a processor? Is it a loan officer? Is it automatically populated? And again, especially if you're working with different appraisal companies, and I think most lenders are, their implementation may be slightly different. So, that's another reason you want to try to get ahead of it, because not every implementation is going to be exactly, the same.
Yeah. One of the things I think is really interesting about this whole process, and I'm just kind of walking through kind of stem to stern from ordering the appraisal to delivering it to Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. Near the end of that process, when you're getting ready to package the whole thing up and sell it up, you've got the quality control and underwriting. I think the underwriting function is about to get a lot easier for underwriters. Do you think that's right?
Um, I think it will. Again, maybe not initially because there is some training as far as translation of, what the data means now in different systems. But I guess, I think once you get past that hurdle, I think it's going to be a lot easier, a lot more streamlined for the underwriters,
Yeah.
definitely.
And I think from the appraiser's perspective, there's going to be a pain point. There's going to be a learning curve. And Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have done a really good job of getting the word out to the real estate appraisal community. Hey, you got to get ready. You got to get ready. I know they've been doing the same thing on the lender side, but when you've got large enterprise groups working on a production-based model, it's awful hard to take people out of production to have them trained. Um,
Yes.
and what we're trying to do here at Hitting the High Notes is literally talk to kind of the folks in charge of training those groups of people and say, hey, these are the things you need to think about. Do you think, Ronyelle, at the end of the day, if somebody comes to Hitting the High Notes, they may not leave with all of the answers, but they may leave with better questions and an idea of how to start working on the roadmap? Does that seem fair?
Oh, absolutely. Definitely. And especially since we're going to have representation from the GSEs there. So I know there will be a ton of questions that, folks will be able to get answered. And, when we started kind of dissecting the information here at ICE, that's the first thing that we did. We went to the GSEs and, we went through all the documentation that they put together, the training, and they have done just a great job of, helping the industry get ready for this. So I would encourage folks to please, go out there, see what documentation, what training is available. And even maybe before you come to our session, kind of review that so that, you have at least a high level understanding, and then you can maybe ask more specific questions and get more out of the session.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. All right, so look, things are, I don't know how to say it. They're completely changing how the lending industry has been handling valuation for decades, and there's a
Mhm.
new way to think about the information involved. Um, how did you guys start this, what is nothing less than a massive undertaking? And what are some of the, I want to hear some of the roadblocks, just really briefly, but there's got to be some really cool features that came out of this change that you're excited about. So the questions are, how did you start this massive undertaking? What are some of the roadblocks? And then what are some of the cool things you're actually looking forward to?
Sure. So how do we get started? Well, obviously, again, just consuming as much information that we could that was made available by the GSEs. But then, as questions came up and we needed a deeper understanding, we reached out to our partners, at the GSEs, at the different appraisal institutions, and, just asked for more specific feedback to make sure that were on the right track. And so once we felt we had a good understanding of what all was impacted and what all was involved in the process, that's where we were able to kind of break out the chunks of work and understand which teams within ICE would be impacted. And
Right.
then we were able to meet and kind of come up with a plan and, work towards a roadmap and a timeline for, when we would be ready.
I love it. What about roadblocks? Anything that kind of stymied you guys?
Once we got a good handle on, what was needed, that was like the biggest roadblock is just getting an understanding of all the moving parts. But I think once we understood that, again, what I'm seeing right now for lenders, it's the biggest change is the form numbers going away, and I can feel some apprehension from them on their processes. Well, what am I going to do? They really love the form numbers. So
Yeah.
yeah, right now that's the biggest, obstacle and training opportunity for us at ICE as well.
Okay, good. And then the cool feature, what's something that you love about this process?
I love the dynamic URAR that comes back. I think that is very cool, and I can see a lot of benefit there. But I think there's a lot of opportunities, especially for folks who love data or want to use data in interesting ways to help automate processes or tasks within the organization, and just to help with overall workflow efficiencies. So I think we're going to see more and more cool creations and evolutions based off that, new streamlined data set.
I love it.
Solidify is one of the nation's most trusted valuation and title partners. With their proprietary technology and extensive network, Solidify delivers industry-leading quality, transparency, efficiency, and scale to the largest mortgage lenders in the U.S. Their marketplace of independent, qualified field professionals makes the homeownership experience extraordinary every time. Visit solidify.com for more information and stay connected with their latest news on LinkedIn.
Ronyelle, again, thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing you in Las Vegas at Hitting the High Notes, the pre-conference, actually pre-conference for Valuation Expo, Sunday night, August the 10th. I'm excited to have you there, and I'm excited. Look, we've got an incredible cast of characters that are going to be on stage to cover various parts of the entire process from soup to nuts. And then we're going to have a little party afterwards, right? There's a networking event for our listeners. If you come to Hitting the High Notes, you're going to get basically a 2 hour, like, deep dive, nutrient rich, very fast paced educational offering. You're going to have questions. We've got a networking event afterwards, and all of our panelists are going to be there. And look, you can ask some questions in real time, corner them. Ronyelle, I'm sorry, people are going to corner you at the bar. But yeah, talk to them. It's a chance to ask questions in real time and leave the session with a plan for your organization to be ready to start with UAD 3.6 as soon as possible. Ronyelle, thank you again so much for being here. Now, I'm going to tell you real quick, Jim Morrison, our producer, likes to come at me with what he calls an anonymous appraiser question. And I think he does it to make me look like an idiot on the national stage because he asks really hard questions. Jim, do we have an anonymous appraiser question that Ronyelle and I are going to try and tackle today?
No, I'm going to let you both off the hook. We don't have any
Oh,
questions
woo!
today. But if anybody would like to
Fantastic.
send in our questions for a future episode, reach out to comments@appraisalbuzz.com. And I got another website for you guys to go to, valuationexpo.com. Register there for Hitting the High Notes. We are really so excited for this session. It's our first time offering it, and we really think it's going to be a big success. You know, we've got a cap on this. We can only fit so many people in the party afterwards, so we're already over halfway there. So go in and ahead and register at valuationexpo.com and get signed up before it's too late.
Ronyelle, again, thank you so much for taking the time to be here. Jim, do we have anything else we need to cover?
That's it, Ronyelle. Thank you so much. See you soon.
Thank you.
If we have nothing else for Jim Morrison and Ronyelle Banks, I'm Hal Humphreys. That is your Appraisal Buzzcast for this week.